Welcome to the NC Everything podcast. I'm your host, Curtis, and this is part 2 of the Kirk Holden War. I know that sounds like a strange intro, but if you found yourself on this episode and it's your first time listening, go back and listen to the episode right before this one for part 1 of the Kirk Holden War. As for the rest of you, I'm back, and so are the mosquitoes. They're very kind today. They met me as soon as I walked out of the house. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see me waving and scratching on the mosquitoes. There's an unknown number out here, but I think I am certainly outnumbered. And kind of like last time, I have a lot to cover, so I want to get right back into it. Just a quick recap. The Klan has been wreaking havoc, and Governor Holden has called in troops, and they have arrived. So the troops that have arrived, they're mostly under the command of this guy, Kirk, and they're going to instate martial law in Caswell and Alamance County. And like I said toward the end of the last episode, they have their orders, find these guys and arrest them. So while they're heading to the area, their ultimate destination is Caswell County. To get there, because they're coming from the west, they pass through Alamance County. So just in Alamance County, they make a few arrests. They get to Caswell County, and the Caswell County Courthouse, to be more specific, they make a few more arrests up there, and then they kind of break up or break off, and a lot of them head back to Alamance County to operate there and kind of hold down martial law there, while the rest of them are holding down martial law in Caswell County. Now, I couldn't find a whole lot on the arrest and a lot of the actions there. I did read that a few of the Klan leaders, they fled the area. They wear bed sheets because they don't want anybody to see their face. So naturally, they tucked tail and got out of there rather than face the U.S. military. There were some fights. There were some assaults. I did think I mentioned in the last episode, and I didn't have it in my notes here, but I had read somewhere that a gunfight did break out in Chatham County. I think there was one casualty. It wasn't a major engagement or anything. But they did ultimately arrest 82 men in Alamance County and 19 men in Caswell County. Most of these arrests, they were aggressively apprehended, but there were a few Klan members who apparently turned themselves in. They saw the error of their ways and renounced the KKK and sought out the U.S. Army to surrender. Now, one of these surrenderees was a guy named James E. Boyd. He was a Klan member in Alamance County. Him and 15 other guys, they turned themselves in. And Boyd, during the rest of the campaign and the martial law, Boyd, he fed information about the Klan to the military to try to help them out. He was hoping, this could get some of his sentencing eased up a little bit. He was hoping to make a deal. And to probably nobody's surprise, it didn't take very long before all Klan activity came to a stop in Alamance and Caswell County. Now, some of the Klan members, they weren't just local farmers. A lot of them were local farmers, but there was also a congressman, John Carr Jr., and in case you were wondering, the sheriffs from both Alamance and Caswell County were arrested. Now, the conservatives, they were the enemies here in this story for the most part. The Klan was the enemy. The conservatives were the sympathizers. They did have to fight back. They fought back in their own way. So they complained about the militia being around. They claimed they were terrorizing communities. Overall, nothing major really happened. I think there was one complaint about the soldiers getting naked and bathing in the streets. They did, bathe, and people did see them, but I don't think they were, walking around in the streets naked. But despite all this, the conservatives tried to make it out like this was domestic terrorism. Now, you remember I talked about them suspending the writ of habeas corpus, the right to a speedy trial. Almost immediately, the arrestees started writing the U.S. government and asking for them to write them a writ of habeas corpus. They wanted to hurry up and get through their trial. They figured they would probably be, turned loose. No evidence. You can't charge us. They assumed that if they could hurry up and get their trial, they'd be, back out in no time. But remember, Holden, he wanted to try these guys in a military tribunal because they were terrorists. He didn't want to try them as just murderers. He wanted to try them as terrorists. Now, despite President Grant's support of Governor Holden, he ultimately did say, go ahead. In short, he said, go ahead and try these men. So he undone the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. And so the arrestees, they were split into two groups. The first group was sent to Raleigh, and the second group was sent to Salisbury. Now, in the Salisbury, it sounds funny now, and it will sound funny when you hear it. They didn't realize in Salisbury that they had to have proof of these men's wrongdoing. And so since they didn't, bring any kind of proof with them, all the guys sent to Salisbury were turned loose. They were released right away. Up in Raleigh, 49 guys, they really went over the evidence. They brought their business with them to Raleigh. So they were going over all the evidence, and they had a lot of it. And ultimately, 49 men were indicted, and they were ordered to be tried in Alamance and Caswell County Superior Courts. However, in the end, not a single one of these 49 men were convicted of any crimes. All these guys were arrested, and not a single one saw any long-term jail time. Now, and I know the sun's going down behind me. If that gets too bad, I'll turn the camera. But now it's voting time again. The election is here. And martial law is still in place in Alamance and Caswell County. So Kirk, he sent some men to Shelby and Cleveland County to guard the polls, to make sure everybody could get up there and vote without being harassed. He sent some troops to Shelby and Cleveland County. He sent some folks to Carthage in Moore County. He sent some folks to Chapel Hill in Orange County. And he sent some folks to Goldsboro and Wayne County. And ultimately, the elections went off without a hitch. And on September 13th of that year, martial law was lifted, and all the military, they were dispatched elsewhere. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this camera a little bit. All right, so I jumped ahead a little bit. The martial law, the military started pulling out on September 13th. The martial law actually wasn't lifted until November 10th. And now it was time for revenge. The conservatives, they wanted their pound of flesh. And so they more or less declared war on Governor Holden and Kirk. I think General Kirk. Again, I lost his rank somewhere in my notes. But war was more or less declared on Holden and Kirk. They petitioned the Supreme Court to issue warrants for the arrests for Holden and Kirk, and a few other militia guys. During the martial law, some of the troops that came down, they got a little rough with some of the folks they arrested. So they wanted Holden arrested, they wanted Kirk arrested, and some of these other troops who I don't have their names, but again, they wanted their pound of flesh. Now, ultimately, it was rejected, the warrants for the arrest for these guys. But then Klan members, they lodged official complaints against Kirk and Holden. And again, I don't mean to keep talking shit about the Klan. I mean, I don't mind talking shit about the Klan, but the Klan, by now we all know the Klan and how they operate. It just seems ironic that they're lodging complaints about anything, really. Now, Kirk, even though going back to Kirk a minute, even though ultimately, they didn't put out a warrant for his arrest, he was worried that they would try to arrest him. And so he got a U.S. Marshal to detain him, more for protection. He had a U.S. Marshal detain him and take him to Raleigh. It did say that while he was passing through Hillsboro in Orange County, a posse did form and try to attack him, but he made it out of there. Ultimately, Kirk would find his way back to Washington, D.C., where he would get a job as a police officer. As far as Governor Holden, all the conservatives were screaming for his impeachment. They said he acted outside the law and overreached and stuff like that. And, the whole time he swore that he acted within his rights and certainly within the law. However, he was put on trial for impeachment, or he withstood an impeachment trial, and that lasted from January 30th until March 22nd. So in my notes, it looks like he he was facing 8 charges. It says that the first 2 charges, there wasn't a majority vote to convict him on those 2 charges. And I didn't find in here what the charges were. I probably could if I dug a little deeper, but I dropped the ball on that one. But out of the 8 charges, he wasn't convicted on the first 2, but he was convicted on the last 6. And so the U.S. Senate removed him from office and barred him from holding office in North Carolina ever again. He was impeached. However, ultimately and eventually, he would be pardoned of all his crimes. And that's the end of the Kirk Holden War. It's not a happy ending. The Klan, they went free, and Holden, he pretty much had his career ruined, and Kirk barely made it out alive. I'm assuming he lived to be an old man. I hope he lived to be an old man, but he kind of fell out of history. Going back to the Klan a minute, these guys made it out. I don't know personally any Klan members today. No, I do know personally one Klan member, but he has nothing to do with this story. I don't even know if he's still a Klan member, but I know a former Klan member. But the Klan in this story, they went back to their lives, and they lived the rest of their lives. These guys and probably these families are still in Alamance and Castle County. I say that because my family has been in Orange County for 300 some years. My family pioneered. They were the pioneers in Alamance County. It's kind of cool. I tell some of my friends, you live on my family's land, but these guys got out scot-free. I'm sure, calling martial law in Alamance and Castle County, it set the tone. So there's not a whole lot of major Klan activity after the Kirk Holden War. They definitely set them straight down there and let them know what would happen. But these guys, they didn't face any charges for any murder of the several murders they committed. So again, it's not a happy ending. And after reading this story, I can certainly see why they don't talk about this in our high school history class. However, I do think this is an important part of history. It's disappointing that I went most of my life so far and never heard anything about it. But anyway, this is where I normally say I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope it was interesting. I hope you got something out of it. Enjoyed is not really the right word, but I hope I didn't ruin the NC Everything podcast for you. I hope you'll definitely come back for a more positive or light episode. And I don't even remember what episode this is. I got it wrote down somewhere, but I got a couple hundred episodes now. That doesn't sound right. I got plenty of other episodes for you to choose from that are very light and entertaining and don't have to do with murder and arrest and martial law. So if this is one of your first few episodes and you're unsure about the show, definitely check out something else. The first one that comes to mind is the Cora Tree. Check that out. That's a fun episode. But anyway, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for bearing with me for a 2-part episode. I don't do it very often. I don't know when I'll do it again, but that's all I have for today. The mosquitoes are tearing me up out here, and it's 97 degrees out here. It's really hot, even though the sun's going down. So I'm going to go cool off, get the mosquito bites off of me, and I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.